Alright, if you haven't seen any of my other videos, this is a 1977 4 horsepower I've been working on. It's just about done. The only thing left to do to it is to install the spark plugs. So, I have those here. I gotta check the gap and or gap them. Those are L77 JC4s. Gap is 0.040, so I set those, tighten them down, and should be ready to test start. Alright, spark plugs are checked. Gapped rather, whatever. Put the hood on. And our engine is ready to go. Alright, I got my engine on the here. I got a few gallons of water in my big bucket. I got some fresh 91 octane gas in my little 3-gallon tank there. Pre-mixed 50 to 1 with a splash more oil just for safe measure. I put an inline filter since I'm using this old metal tank just to make sure, you know, nothing goes in there. So I'm going to pump up the primer and we'll see what happens. That goes there. So I can see the gas now filling up the filter. You can hear it making its way past the fuel pump. Well, it should be in there. Primer's nice and hard, so we'll get some pull starts and we'll see what happens. Just did a little higher here to the start spot. Let's give it a couple turns. So, choke. Turn our knobs out a little. Well, we got some light. Okay, definitely going to need some adjustments there, knobs. The one thing I like so far is I'm not hearing any rods clinking or anything weird, so that's a good sign. I'll let it get warmed up a little bit and I'll start playing with the choke knobs. So this is having a tendency to vibrate over to stop, so I'm going to have to tighten down the handle there. Water squirting out of the relief holes. So our water pump's doing something, so that's good. Let it run for a while. If I can keep it running like this. See here, it's running pretty poorly. Vibrating way more than it should. Not quite getting where the RPM should be. So, I don't think it's necessarily a adjustment needed. I mean, it's possible. Feels almost like it's only firing in one cylinder. as you saw, the engine runs, so that's a good start. The problem is it runs just absolutely terrible. It almost feels like it's only really running in one cylinder. So we had a couple of tests to do. Now there is a slim chance too that, well, back up a little. So when the throttle's about there, it'll start, it'll run, no problems. Regardless of how you adjust these knobs, doesn't really change anything, it'll start at that point. So it's possible, unlikely but possible, that we have a frayed wire inside our power pack and leads here. So when you're in this spot, you know, it cuts off, you know, the signal from the power pack, or when you're back here, it cuts off signal. But, you know, it makes the contact right there. Usually you'll see that in bigger V4 engines, V6 engines that have a timer base that need, you know, 4 wires that rotate back and forth constantly. You do that enough and they get frayed internally. Chances are that's not the case here, but I'm going to test for that anyway. Also, I'm going to do a leak down test on the cylinder head here to make sure that we don't have a bad cylinder head causing pressure to go into the opposite cylinder. Unlikely, but possible. So we'll do some tests and see what's going on with it. Alright, so I got the spark plugs out. The bottom spark plug smells like gas, which you'd expect. The top does not. So it's possible we're only firing on one cylinder. Well, that's probably the case. But chances are, well, not chance. It's possible that gas isn't getting to the top cylinder, so we'll take a look at that too. Tester here, ready to go. So I'm going to find the top of this cylinder here. You like my finding the top tool? So we'll thread in our tester. And we'll get some compressed air. So the regulator of my compressor I have turned down to about 60. This has a regulator as well, so you don't need to worry about it too much. But we're putting in, I don't know, 20 psi, which is a little too much. Just under 15 is usually about good. And we're leaking out of our little tester here. So that's pretty cool, but I don't feel any air coming out of the bottom cylinder, which I honestly didn't really expect to. By the way, that's where we are in our reading there. So, bottom seems okay. Gauge kind of sucks, so let's see if we can't fix that. Well, the O-ring looks like it's probably done for. Perhaps rob one of the O-rings off of one of the other tools, or just find an O-ring and force it on there. So let me see what I can do. We fixed our own O-ring leak. Now the reason why these gauges are a little off is because I could say, oh, this has, you know, what is that, 25-ish % leak down. But if I up the air pressure, I can easily say, you know, oh, this has no leak down at all. This cylinder is perfect. So all it really does is kind of compare two cylinders. So let's leave it, or adjust our airflow so it's right at 20%. And we'll leave it right there. It dropped a little. That's the nature of the beast a little. Alright, cool. So we're at 20, and we'll check the bottom cylinder. Alright, Chingus is hooked up to the bottom. It'd help if I had that cylinder top to head. I didn't. So it should be right around there somewhere. So right about there. So the bottom cylinder, about the same as the top. So that's good. And I don't feel any air or anything coming out of the top spark plug hole. Now we can bump up the pressure just to double check. Nothing. So our cylinder head, probably in pretty good condition. Alright, carburetor, power pack are off. So luckily on this thing, we can get to this. But the only thing left now really to check is the leaf plate. Luckily, as I said, you don't just pull the power head off to get to it. Because when you have to do that, you're also buying a power head gasket. And they're usually, $9 or $10. So this repair kind of gets costly pretty quick. But screws are all broken loose, so I'm just going to get all these off now. Those off, usually we look for a nice good prying spot, but it doesn't really look like there is one. Well, apparently there was, so that'll work. Let's get this off of here. Hopefully we don't ruin a gasket. Well, that gasket's intact, so that's good. Like I said, you don't want to have to buy these if you don't have to. Pop this one off. This one looks a little trickier. So we ripped the gasket here, so now we gotta buy a gasket set. That sucks. But it is what it is. So I'll have to clean that up, but no big deal. Well, looks okay inside of there. Not that that really means anything. So our gasket ripped right there. And the bottom might be good enough. I might be able to put it back together just to test start it to see if it makes a difference and then take it back apart. But otherwise I don't really see much issue going on with this. The reason I don't want to buy gaskets is because then that's another order. You gotta pay shipping too, and it looks like I'm probably gonna have to, given that this bottom one's coming off. Anyway, it just gets expensive. Now, again, I wouldn't have a problem buying a gasket if I knew it worked or was going to fix the problem, but you don't. Show you some light on the situation. Get it? Yeah, you can't see what I'm doing, but anyway, this bottom one right here. See that? It's not quite seated. I mean, it looks like it's making a seal, but it's not. There's a good example. See that light pouring through there? Only on that one. That is a problem. Now, yeah, you could argue I just went there with a screwdriver and started poking at it, but no, I was just opening it. So that could be our issue. Hopefully it is. So you saw me mess with this one, but not that one. Oh, you stupid camera. See the heads? Ain't quite nice. So it's been apart before. So rather than trying to clean up the old one, I went ahead and decided to see what the green one looked like. And it looks, well, a lot better. So our screws have never been taken out, which means our reeds are still in its nice spot. I don't see them lifting up anywhere. I don't see any bends, and I can't see any light sticking through on the back sides. So I think this is the reed plate to use. So I'm going to double check the parts catalog, make sure they're the same. If so, I'm going to install this reed plate onto that engine and give it a try. Alright, the gasket surfaces are cleaned up on the engine, as well as the intake manifold and my borrowed leaf plate, at least the best as they're getting. So now I am using old gaskets here. That is a horrible idea, but it's what I'm doing because they're here, free and available. This one has a slight nick to it right there, but it's in more pieces. Well, it's in less pieces than the one that came off this motor, so it's what I'm using. If it starts, this is getting replaced. Well, if it starts and runs better, it's getting replaced. Or I'll replace it if I do figure out what's actually wrong with this motor. There is a tiny pinhole in the center that's got to stay clear, so just keep that in mind. Way too much on here anyway, so let's go ahead and wipe some of it off. Alright, pinhole is no longer drenched, so that's good. I'm going to install it the same way it came off, which is like that. Nick shouldn't be an issue, but we'll see what happens. Now, I'm also going to do the other side, just the surface here. This should help seal up my rock hard old gaskets. And I already showed you how I got it apart, so I'll put it back together now the same way, and then just put the rest of the thing back together and see if it runs. Alright, I have the setup hooked up a little bit differently than usual, just because this barrel uses less water than the drum does, so I figured it'd be a better idea. So in full throttle, a little bit past. That's a lot. A little rough still. I'm playing with the knobs and trying to get the slow speed perfect. And it's a little hard. Well, I've had it running now. I've had it running now for about 30 minutes, various RPMs. Every 5-10 minutes or so I'd walk over and give it a little more or a little less gas, depending on where it was. So it seems to be running pretty good. It doesn't die, and it's drawing fuel, so all in all I'd say it's probably going to be a good motor again. So I like doing this sometimes, shutting them off, make sure they restart. Well, not too shabby, I don't think. well, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. As you can see, these engines aren't always that fun, but you know, if you like tinkering, they're good to work on. So someday I'll get this onto a little boat and actually do a lake test and see how it does then. Also, it kind of, after it sat for 3 hours or so, I went to start it back up. Took 4 pulls or so, 5 maybe. It's a little off. So it could be the weak coils or the weak power pack. I don't know, but yeah, it's running for now. One last thing before I go. In case you're wondering, I have the engine hanging on the bench, and it weighs 37.7 pounds. So thinking about buying a 4-horse, no, 38. I'm also pushing the motor now to get the thing centered, but anyway. So let's call it 38 pounds. So if you're worried about one of these and the weight on your motor, it weighs 38 pounds. So now you know.